Welcome to Betrayal Narrative X.
There's a special kind of woman, the kind who can look you in the eye, tell you how much they love you, while simultaneously making an appointment to meet her lover in a hotel room 7 minutes after you've gone to work. But of course, she's not the problem. The problem is that you didn't buy her favorite wine on Sunday. Let's get acquainted. Write in the comments what city and country are you from? Intuition is a strange thing. You can't touch it, measure it, or prove it, but if it whispers something, you'd better listen. A month ago, I started noticing something subtle. No tantrums, no outright joints. No, Grace was too smart for that. She still kissed me before she left for work, made jokes at dinner, and wondered how my day was going. But something about her had changed. She started looking at her phone more often, but not with that dumbfounded expression people have when they're browsing social media, but with a kind of focused, even excited look. When I walked into the room, the phone would immediately go screen down. And no, I'm not a jealous psycho who rushes in with questions because of my wife's every move, but I'm damn good at sensing when something's wrong. One night put everything into perspective. Grace was taking a shower, and her phone was left on the nightstand. It suddenly lit up. A message had arrived. I didn't sneak up on purpose, I just happened to be nearby and happened to see the sender's name. Roy. Funny, I didn't know any Roys around her. The screen went out immediately, but curiosity got the better of me. I turned on my phone, and oh my goodness, it wasn't locked. I opened the message. Can't wait for our night, baby. 10 p.m. Riverside, Hotel Room 83. I close my eyes, take a deep breath. Something inside clenched unpleasantly, but not enough to throw me off balance. I'd been guessing for a while, hadn't I? I stand there for a couple seconds staring at the screen. Theoretically, I could just close the phone and pretend I hadn't seen anything. Live in sweet ignorance, like so many people do. But no, not my style. The water turns off in the bathroom. I put the phone down and walk out of the bedroom. Honey, have you gone to bed yet? Almost I'm tired as a dog. She appears in the doorway, fresh, wearing only a towel, her hair damp. She wipes her face, then picks up her phone and glances at it. I wait for some kind of reaction, wary, afraid, but no. Grace remains perfectly calm, quickly typing a reply and locking the screen. I watch her from under my lashes, hiding a smile. Well, we'll see how you do, dear. The next day, she informs me that she has a girls' night out. I pretend to believe her. I kiss her goodbye, promise not to miss her, and even joke about not getting drunk. At 9:30 p.m., I park at the Riverside. It's a cheap hotel, but it's not exactly a dump. It's a kind of place that's convenient for conferences and seminars, according to the sign out front. Although something tells me that most people don't spend their time here discussing business strategies. At the front desk, the girl smiles politely. What can I do for you? I need the key to an 83. Are you a guest of the hotel? I have a meeting there, but my friend already booked a room, Roy. The girl nods and enters the name into the database. That's right. Your friend already came in, but he didn't stay long. Would you like to wait in the room? That would be great. She hands me the card without further question. I enter the room. The room was standard, bed, minibar, armchair by the window. The smell of shower gel wafted from the bathroom. Apparently, Roy hadn't wasted any time. I look around the room, then sit down in a chair, stretch my legs out, and wait. At exactly 10 o'clock, the door opens. Grace walks in, glancing over her shoulder, obviously checking to see if anyone she knows sees her. She has a small purse in her hands and a slight playful blush on her face. She slams the door shut and speaks languidly. I thought I was going to be late. But, she freezes. I smile at her from my chair, raising my whiskey glass. Hello, dear, surprise. I saw her face stiffen in confusion for a split second before she quickly pulled herself together. Grace has never been a woman who gets lost in difficult situations. Her talent for lying and instantly adapting to unexpected circumstances was always impressive. Bruce? What are you doing here? Her voice was perfectly even, but her eyes were running around the room like she was looking for somewhere to escape. I didn't answer right away. I brought the glass to my lips and took a small sip, savoring not only the whiskey, but the moment itself. There was no anger boiling inside me, no desire to yell or make a scene. All I felt was the lazy satisfaction of finally putting the puzzle together. I'm sitting here, waiting for my wife. She said she was going to be with her friends, but it looks like there's been a change of plans. Grace lowered her eyes for a second, then grinned and stepped into the back of the room. She tried to take control of the situation, as she always did. You followed me? Are you serious? I set the glass on the table, interlaced my fingers over my stomach, and tilted my head, studying her. No, Grace, I just happened to be in this very room on this very evening at this very time. This is some kind of misunderstanding. You've got it all wrong. Let's hear it. I've always loved your fantasies. She yanked up her dress, took a deep breath, and gave out the first thing that came to mind. It's a prank. My friend surprised me, but it looks like you got the surprise. So you have a friend named Roy? Yeah. It's a nickname, you know? We make fun of each other. All right. Uh-huh. Why is this Roy renting you a hotel room? We wanted to have a party. You know, a silly girl flash mob. We dress up, drink party in a hotel room. I nodded slowly, as if pondering her words. Then why did you say you were late? Grace blinked, realizing she had backed herself into a corner. I didn't mean that. It's just She fell silent, and I got up from my chair, stepped closer, and looked directly into her eyes. Grace, I know everything. I saw the message. I know who Roy is. I know why you're here. You're being paranoid. Maybe you should get your head checked. Maybe you should check your conscience. No, you lost it a long time ago. What do you want, Bruce? A scandal? Divorce? Drama? No, Grace. I just want to see how far you'll take your excuses. It's kind of funny. I was just confused. I didn't mean to hurt you. You're not confused, Grace. You just thought you'd never get caught. So what now? What are you gonna do? I stepped back, sat back in my chair, took another sip of whiskey, and said in an even calm voice, Now, I'm just waiting. I want to see if your Roy's coming. I'd always enjoyed watching Grace get out of difficult situations, wriggling out of them like a snake. But now it wasn't even annoying, it was kind of funny. Are you really going to sit here and wait? Her voice had become strained, but not yet trembling. I took another lazy sip of whiskey, shook my head, and looked at her, studying her reaction. Of course you are. I'm part of this prank too, aren't I? It would be awkward if I left before the fun started. She rolled her eyes, but I saw her legs shake a little, like she didn't know whether to stay in the room or pretend she just happened to come in here. You're acting like a child, Bruce. It's stupid. I grinned, set the glass on the table, and spread my hands as if acknowledging my immaturity. Yeah, maybe. But you know what else is stupid? Setting up a date with a lover in a hotel and hoping your husband never finds out. Grace turned abruptly and walked over to the mirror, fixing her hair, but I knew she just needed to hide her expression. You're being dramatic. Nothing happened between Roy and me. You did? Is that what you told him before you set up the room? You've always been so suspicious. That's your biggest problem. My problem is that I know how to put two and two together. All right. Let's say I really did come here for a reason. So? You want a divorce? You want to make a scene? What are you gonna do, Bruce? I think we should wait for Roy. He should be on his way by now, right? It'll be interesting to see how he reacts when he sees me instead of you. You don't know who you're messing with. Just leave. I raised my eyebrows, feigning surprise, but inside I was only amused by her words. Oh, now you're scaring me? Who is he? A local gangster? Or just a typical married man who's afraid of his own wife? It's none of your business. Just the opposite. This is entirely my business. You're my wife. At least for now. You're enjoying this, aren't you? You like seeing me like this? You know I do. Because for the first time in a long time, I don't see you as a cocky bitch, but as a woman who realizes her game is over. Grace wanted to say something, but at that moment there was the sound of the door opening. The doorknob turned smoothly, and I saw Grace tense up for a second, as if she'd been electrocuted. Her eyes darted to the exit, then to me, then back again. She was obviously frantically running through her options. Rush to the door, scream, come up with another lie? I didn't even turn around. I just continued to sit in the chair, fingers crossed on my stomach, savoring the moment. The door opened, and a dark head appeared in the gap. Then a man stepped into the room. He was tall, stocky, with a short haircut and an expression of slight smugness on his face. He evidently thought he was entering the room with a woman who was about to throw herself at him. But it was me who met him instead. Roy froze in place, his eyebrows raised in surprise. He gave me a quick glance, then shifted his eyes to Grace, who was still standing by the mirror, clutching the handle of her purse like a life preserver. Is this a joke? His voice was rough with a slight huskiness, like someone who smokes too much or yells at people. I finally decided to take some part in what was going on and got to my feet, slowly, without any sudden movements, so as not to spook my guest. No, Roy, this is not a joke, although it probably looks that way to you. He frowned, but he didn't yet understand what was going on. Grace finally found her voice and stepped closer, stretching her arms out in front of her, as if trying to contain a possible conflict. Bruce, please, let's just go. I'll explain. Would you explain? I grinned, then looked at Roy. She already tried. Said you were a prank. Can you believe that? You're her girly flash mob now. Roy shifted his gaze from me to her, and I saw his face slowly pull up. Something like suspicion flashed in his eyes, and then realization came. Wait. Shit, that's her husband? He looked directly at Grace, who tried to take control of the situation. Roy, let's talk later. It's not what he says. I snorted, unable to help myself. Oh yeah, that's right. But I wonder what he'll say. Roy, did you know she was married? The man looked at me, then back at her, and I could see the different emotions struggling inside him. It was obvious that he wasn't prepared for this scenario. Shit. Look, I thought she. He stammered, but I already knew the answer. You thought she was free. That's what she said, right? Grace turned sharply toward me, her eyes flashing anger. Stop it, Bruce. Are you interrogating me? I sat back in my chair, crossing my legs and interlocking my fingers. Actually, I do. You've lied so many times now, I want to hear the truth from someone. Roy clenched his jaw, as if it was only now dawning on him that he was caught up in a dirty game. You said you were divorced a long time ago. You lied to me. I grinned, watching as her lips pressed into a thin line. You bet your ass. Grace is a pro at this. She can lie so well that she starts to believe it herself. She shifted her gaze to Roy, trying to soften the situation. I didn't want to complicate things. You didn't want to complicate things? You did. You didn't. His voice got louder, and he stepped closer, and I thought he was going to grab her by the shoulders and give her a good shake. Grace made an innocent face again, but I could see that she was seething inside. She hated being cornered, hated being caught in a lie. Roy, let's go outside and talk without him. She nodded in my direction like I was a random passerby. I clapped my hands slowly, defiantly clapping like an audience member after a disgustingly acted performance. Bravo, Grace. You keep pulling it off, even when you're standing waist deep in a puddle. Roy sighed, clearly considering whether he should make a scene or just turn around and walk away. Look, man. He looked at me. I didn't know. If I had, I wouldn't have. It's okay, Roy, I'm not mad at you, I'm mad at her. He nodded, then looked at Grace, and without saying a word, just turned around and walked out of the room, leaving her standing there utterly powerless. I poured myself a whiskey again, took a sip, and looked at her with a slight sneer. Well, darling, did you have a good dinner with your girlfriends? She clenched her fists, her nostrils flared, and I knew the fun was about to begin. Grace was silent, clenching her fists so that her nails dug into her palms. I could see her chest rising and falling rapidly with anger, but she was still trying to keep her face straight. I took another leisurely sip of whiskey and nodded toward the door. Well, that's it. Your Roy left without even saying goodbye. She turned around sharply, glaring angrily with her eyes. Is this what you wanted? Were you trying to make a fool out of me? Grace, you made a fool of yourself. I was just present. You made sure he caught us here on purpose. You're a sick man, Bruce. Sick? Because he exposed your lies? Or because he didn't make a scene like you expected? You're just trying to humiliate me. Couldn't you just talk like a normal person? Like a normal person? Are you serious? You cheat on me, lie to me, set up meetings in cheap hotels, and then resent me for not sitting down with you at a family dinner to discuss your new life? Bruce, let's not do this. Let's just forget about it. Forget? You think it's something you can just erase? I made a big mistake. But that doesn't mean our marriage has to end. Grace, our marriage didn't break up now. It crumbled the moment you decided I was an idiot who could be fooled. You think you're perfect? You think you've never been wrong? The only thing I was wrong about was that I trusted you for too long. So what now? What are you gonna do? I'm going to leave. You can stay and make up another lie for yourself. You're just gonna walk away? Just like that? No, Grace. It wasn't easy. But you made it really easy. I opened the door and walked out, leaving her standing in an empty room, alone, with no audience and no excuses. I left the room without looking back and closed the door behind me. There wasn't the rage inside that you'd expect after something like that. There was no pain or despair or desire to rush back in and dump everything I'd accumulated over the years on Grace. There was just a strange sense of relief. I walked down the hall, taking my time, savoring the moment. Finding myself in a cheap hotel amidst suspicious encounters and dirty secrets wasn't the most pleasant experience, but damn it, this was my triumph. Grace stayed there in the room with unspoken words on her lips and a face full of anger. I knew she wouldn't sit down and cry into her pillow when she realized her mistake. She would look for ways to turn the situation in her favor to make herself a victim, and me, a cruel tyrant who didn't understand or forgive her. I stepped outside, took a deep breath of the cool night air, and headed for my car. As I passed the front desk, I noticed the receptionist, the same girl who had given me the key, watching me with mild interest. "How was your evening?" she asked, raising an eyebrow slyly. I stopped, turned to her, and shrugged. "Better than I expected. Worse than I would have liked." She hummed, tilted her head to the side, and tapped her fingernail on the tabletop. "Your wife didn't like the surprise?" I grinned, not hiding my sarcasm. Let's just say she was counting on another man. The receptionist smiled understandingly, as if such stories happened here every week. "If it's any consolation, you're not the first person to leave here in this mood." I smiled back, but didn't say anything. I just nodded and headed for the car. As I got behind the wheel and slammed the door shut, irritation began to boil up inside me. I stared at my reflection in the mirror and tried to comprehend what had just happened. Grace didn't just betray me. She devalued all the years we'd spent together, all the conversations, all the promises. She didn't get confused or stumble. She consciously, step by step, built a parallel life in which I was only a convenient background. The engine rumbled and I pulled out parking lot abruptly, anger rushing in along with the night air rushing in through the ajar window. When I got home, it was dark and quiet inside. The feeling of emptiness that had annoyed me before now seemed almost pleasant. I tossed my keys on the nightstand, walked into the living room, and plopped into a chair. The thought that Grace would be back soon didn't provoke any more reactions. I wasn't interested in what she would say, what excuses she would make. It didn't matter anymore. I was not a naive idiot who thought this marriage could be saved. My decision has been made. I picked up my phone, opened my contact list, and found the name I wanted. "Hey George, I need a good divorce lawyer." There was a brief pause on the other end of the wire, then a sigh. "Damn, Bruce. I guess something was going wrong." I ran my hand over my face tiredly and covered my eyes. It's already gone wrong. It's just a matter of dotting the dots. A couple hours later, I heard the front door slam. Quiet footsteps, then the sound of her purse being dropped on the nightstand. I didn't move, didn't turn my head, just waited. "Are you awake?" Her voice was steady, but there was tension in it. I exhaled, slowly picking up the words, even though everything I wanted to say had been sitting in my head for a while. "No, Grace. I'm awake." She walked cautiously into the living room, stood across from me, and crossed her arms over her chest. "What are you thinking?" I looked up and met her eyes. "About how much you ruined everything." "Bruce, don't bother. I've already made up my mind." "Decided what?" I picked up my phone from the table, unlocked the screen, and scrolled through the list of messages. Then I turned it toward her. "I've already contacted my lawyer. He'll start preparing the paperwork tomorrow." Her face remained impassive at first, but then an irritated smirk appeared on it. Just like that? You won't even try to talk? I shook my head, watching her try to latch on to any chance she had. We've been talking for years. Only I told the truth and you told lies. You're not perfect, Bruce. It's your own fault this happened the way it did. Of course I would. You'd cheat on me, even in heaven, but it's my fault. She jumped to her feet, stepped closer, as if she was going to say something else, but stopped. You won't do it. You're too proud. I slowly rose from my chair, stepped up close to her, and looked her straight in the eye. I'm too proud to let you turn me into an idiot again. She blinked, but didn't back away. Are you sure? Is this really what you want? More than that. Grace took a step back, her lips trembling, but no longer from anger, but from the realization that this conversation wasn't just empty threats. I turned around and headed for the bedroom, leaving her alone with what she had done. I closed the bedroom door behind me, leaving Grace standing in the living room. I was no longer interested in what she was going to do next. Whether she sobbed through things, wrote long, exculpatory messages, or just went to bed pretending nothing had happened, it didn't matter anymore. I turned on the night light, went to the closet, and pulled out my suitcase. I put it on the bed and took my time putting the clothes inside. I wasn't the kind of person who made loud scenes, threw things on the floor, or slammed doors. I was used to something else. If something was falling apart, you just had to accept it and walk away. I could hear muffled footsteps outside the door as Grace paced from room to room. I knew there was a storm brewing inside her. She was trying to come to terms with the fact that for the first time in her life, she hadn't been able to play her game the way she wanted. A couple minutes later, the bedroom door opened and Grace leaned on the jamb and looked up at me. Are you going to leave? Right now? Yeah. I don't see the point in staying here much longer. Can you at least sit down and talk to me? All right. Let's talk. Just no lies. Do you really want to ruin our marriage over one mistake? One mistake? Grace cheating is not a mistake. She bit her lip, but didn't argue. Okay. I screwed up. But you still love me, right? It doesn't matter if I love you or not. What matters is that I don't believe you anymore. You're just resentful. You need time to cool off. Time won't change anything. If I stay, you'll pretend you're sorry, you'll try to be perfect. Then you'll get tired of it, and you'll find new ways to deceive me. No, Bruce. I swear I will never again. Don't lie. We both know it's not true. You can't know what's in my head. You're right. But I know all too well what was in your phone. She stepped forward, grabbed my hand, and squeezed my fingers. Bruce, please. Give me a chance. I looked at her hand, then slowly looked up at her. I gave you every chance, Grace. You didn't use them to keep your family together. You used them to find a better way to trick me. She unclenched her fingers, and her arm fell powerlessly along her body. You won't even let me explain myself? I looked at her one last time and replied calmly. You've already explained everything. In the hotel room. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her in the silence where she was finally alone with her actions. I went downstairs, opened the front door, and stood on the threshold for a moment. The night air was cool and quiet, as if the city had decided to give me a few seconds to finally make sense of everything. The suitcase pulled heavily behind me, but I didn't feel any physical fatigue. All that pressure was sitting inside in my head, in my chest, somewhere deep and inaudible. When I stepped outside, the silence around me seemed even too appropriate. No cars, no footsteps, no voices. Just me and that crisp, crunchy air. I threw my suitcase in the trunk, slammed it shut, and got behind the wheel. Her handkerchief was left on the seat. It was the same one I'd once given her myself, an expensive one from New York with a pattern she adored. I held it in my hands for a minute, maybe two, and then I tossed it back carefully and closed the door. I was driving down a night highway with no purpose, not knowing where to turn. No plans, no dreams, suitcases, no spare apartments, no women from the past ready to shelter. I didn't need any of that right now. I just wanted to go. Just to be somewhere away from this house, away from Grace, away from these lies that had been dripping into my life for years like water from a faucet that should have been fixed long ago. A couple hours later, I stopped at a gas station, grabbed a coffee in a plastic cup, got back in the car, but didn't drive. Just sat there. I watched the empty streets and the neon signs flashing in the rearview mirror, as if in slow motion. I thought back to how our relationship had started. I remember that night at the bar, her carefree laughter, her eyes full of challenge, and the way she played with her glass before giving me her phone number. At the time, I thought I'd met a woman of character. Smart, strong, with fire inside her. And I guess I wasn't wrong. Only that fire turned out to be a fire hazard. There were red flags from the beginning. Little lies, weird excuses, some exes that somehow kept showing up randomly in her life. But I was sure I could handle it. That it was all just a defense, a trace from past traumas, and that I, with my composure and calmness, could become the one she needed. I was wrong. Stupidly, confidently, and to the end. I knew I'd be back in the morning to pick up the rest of my stuff. I'd do it when she was at work. No yelling, no explanations, no last scenes. My scene was already there, at the hotel with Roy and her ridiculous attempts to get out of it. I had nothing more to say to her, nothing else to listen to. The phone vibrated. There was a message from Grace. I didn't open it. Then another one came, then another. All of them probably started with "You got it wrong" and ended with "I still love you." I wonder if she's saying this out of desperation or principle. Maybe she just can't stand losing. Or maybe she's really scared of being alone. Only now, it's not my question anymore. I wasn't angry. I didn't want to retaliate, text friends, post correspondence, tell acquaintances that she was so and so. I just wanted to move on. To mute the sound in my head, to stop going back to the words she'd said, in the bedroom, in the kitchen, at our wedding. You know what the weirdest thing is? The pain goes away quickly, but the feeling of being you stays. Like someone skinned you piece by piece while you slept. And now you're sitting in silence, all skinned up, and you don't even know what to call yourself. Because the person you were with her doesn't exist anymore. I took one last sip of my already cold coffee, started the engine, and got back on the highway. Toward the morning, toward a loneliness that was suddenly easier than life with her. I didn't know what would happen next. But I knew for sure I wasn't going to let anyone else tell me who I was, what to believe in, or who to be with, and damn it, it was the best feeling I'd had in years. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. If you like the story, please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm show my content more often. If you are new to the channel, do not forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep making more stories for you.